All right, we're live. It's you and me and our 70 friends hanging out. Day before Christmas. I'm dressed for the holiday. How about you, Mark?
This is my holiday garb. This is green and red, and we're supposed to get snow here tonight. We might have a white Christmas tomorrow, so it was
That'd be
raining all
awesome.
day. That would be great. I have this big giant pine tree in front of the house that looks like a Christmas tree at Rockefeller Center. So hopefully they'll be covered with snow.
Well, you are in a location that does have a little bit of pine available.
There's a lot of pine available here. Yeah, I'm pining. I am pining for the pine.
You have to admit, though, it's a pretty peaceful spot.
Dude, my blood pressure is like 0. I mean, I haven't heard a siren in 2 weeks. I can't. I live in a war zone in Hollywood. I swear to God that my blood pressure is completely plummeted.
You're like, what do I do? What do I do with myself?
No, I am at peace. I don't care. I'm afraid to go back. I've got PTSD. Not to mock PTSD, one of the most sad diseases known to man.
And yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. And we're never mocking anything. Well, we get
I never mock any disease unless I have it, and I have them all.
And we do get them in the comments about that we laugh too frequently sometimes.
Yes, we're just too fucking happy, Eric. I mean, that's really the problem that people. What are these two knuckleheads in a bar laughing about?
I'm telling you,
we've got a show of two knuckleheads in a bar. That should be the name of the show.
Hell yeah, definitely. Now, okay, we are not doing Baldwin today.
Woo!
We will be doing Baldwin in the upcoming days. It could be as soon as Sunday, maybe.
As soon as Baldwin does something, he'll do something.
Well, he did do a little something, but we'll go into that later. But maybe as soon as Sunday, maybe early next week. Don't know, but we didn't want to just throw out 2 shows. We want to have 2 good shows rather than 2 rushed shows that aren't really well put together or thought out. So today, in the spirit of the holiday and Christmas, we're going to be talking about America's street games. So how did this come about that you were writing up a treatment for this?
Oh yeah, that's where it came from. That's right. This was originally going to be a TV series for Nickelodeon, I believe. At one point, LeVar Burton was the host, potentially the host, and then another host was Gilbert Gottfried for a minute. And there were various people attached to it.
Wow, Gilbert Gottfried would be.
Yeah,
that would be
interestingly enough.
Yes,
that didn't fly. I think that,
yeah, right around the Aflac.
That didn't fly, but he loved the games. He knew all the games. LeVar Burton didn't know the games, but no, I take that back. He did know most of them. Not everybody knew them, but if you grew up in New York, you knew these games really well. But like I said to you, their origins are from all over the world, and I believe I talked to a psychologist many years ago who believes that there is a collective unconsciousness of children where these games are something that they are intuitively understanding about, because they seem to be in Ghana, they seem to be in Japan, they seem to be all over the world, and the kids are not instructed in school how to play these games, and they have slightly different name variations. Ringolevio here is called Relevio somewhere else, and there's slight differences in some of them, but they cross all national boundaries. And the ones that we got originally, came from England and Western civilization, Rome.
Have you heard of DNA or genetic memory?
No.
That
could be.
I'm wondering if this is a tie, kind of like most kids can sense that a snake is bad. How do you know a snake is bad? You've got no exposure to it, but you kind of feel this little freak out. What would cause that? And there's been research done on how they may be interpreting things throughout time. And I guess I have what?
No, it was myself. I'm
just sitting here. You're fine. It's Mark casually saying, "Get
I had
your face." Anyway, I wonder if it's something like that. Like,
I think it is. Dr. Drew is a big proponent of that. He's talked about it in terms of multi-generational Holocaust survivors who are the third or fourth generation having a neuroses. And I just found, we argue about it all the time. I just find it hard to believe, but that's his theory, what you just said.
Yep, and I agree with Tyler. Comedy genius Gilbert Gottfried. That voice, though.
You know what's so funny?
Just-
He did the original voice for Affleck. Thank you, Tyler. And he quit or he got fired, and they replaced him with a Gilbert copy.
Oh,
And
yeah.
he went to court and he lost. And you would think that this was a slam dunk. It's his voice. They hired him for that voice. It
But it's
becomes
work
a
product.
thing. Excuse me?
But he got probably caught up in work product because his voice isn't completely. I mean, it is his voice, but it's not completely unique. And so they mimic it. And you bring in the this FBI, and then they do a voice meter and say, no, it's actually a spectrum notch
Yeah,
off.
I don't know, but it was such a cause celeb for a while. It was so brazen what Affleck did. They were embarrassed. I mean, it was ridiculous, and they still lost. He still lost the case, Gilbert, as I recall.
Yeah,
As far as I know.
Well, that was right after the. I keep wanting to say, was it typhoon? In Japan when the nuclear reactor they had the storm.
Oh, Fukushima.
Fukushima, yeah, and he did some jokes right around that time, and they're like, so he's
right,
an
but
early
you don't bring in an
canceled
impersonator. I mean, what if you brought in a Jay Leno impersonator? I mean, they brought in an impersonator,
yeah,
and yet they prevailed in court.
yep. Thank
Anyway,
you.
he is a
Tsunami.
comic genius to answer that question.
My brain is hosed here. So back
Anyway, to get back to this children's games thing, which is what we're doing here, these games, like I was explaining to you the other day, seem to transcend different borders and boundaries.
Mhm.
And the origin of the games, before we get into each individual game, the origin of the games, I said before we get into the games.
No, I was going to say like you did from Ghana. You were talking about the different.
Right. Oh no, right.
That's
right.
a different place, Mark.
Right. Okay. So in Africa, they were using vines for centuries just to do jump rope, actual vines. And in other parts of the world, they were using rope and string. I don't know about hemp, but I'm sure that was involved too.
Mhm.
Anyway, so these games were played by kids and adults together. There was no differentiation between youth and adults. And this is, going back in the 1600s, going back to Roman times. Like I was telling you, the game of hopscotch derived from Roman soldiers putting 50 to 100-pound bags of flour on their shoulders and hopping on individual stones to keep their strength up when they were doing nothing out in the hinterlands. So they would, as a training exercise out of boredom and to keep them fit, they would put these giant bags of flour on their shoulders and hop on these grids. And then you pointed out.
Yeah, it's like the NFL, right? When they go through the tires.
Yes.
And they, run through that and ram. So it's almost like they went full circle. The
Right.
Romans did it with the weights. Then it's turned into a kids game. And then the NFL goes kind of back to the
right. So the kids game, all of these games, which is the whole point of the show, all of these games were derived and meant to strengthen or improve or to teach techniques that would be used in real life. They were not for fun. These games, and all of them, had a purpose. In other words, Ring Alivio was designed to help your military skills and your ability to capture the enemy, let's say. Marbles, we'll get into. I'll show you the marbles thing, and we'll get into that. But what happens is the kids and the adults all play these games together. Mm-hmm. And the adults were teaching the kids how to play the games, and there's a purpose. And hide and go seek was, another game that would strengthen your ability and your vision and your acuity, either in battle or in agriculture and dealing with sheep and rounding up animals that would stray on the farm. So all of these had a purpose. What happened was during the Industrial Revolution, the first Industrial Revolution, let's say in the 1850s and there, the adults go off to work in the factories. Now the children go off to work in the factories too, but the English begin to pass legislation that stops child factory work, and the children are left alone for the first time at home. And this is, I want to say, late 1800s, going up until 1901. 12-year-olds were finally, there was an age limit put on it. But the late 1800s, early 1900s, the children were finally home alone. And that's when they begin to play these games by themselves. The adults, as I was pointing out, only have Sunday off. So when they get off on Sunday, they create something that we now know to be spectator sports. And the spectator sport is invented because of the Industrial Revolution and the fact that they're working 6 days a week. And that one day on Sunday allows them to go to church and to play sports. And organized sport happens, organized football teams, organized soccer teams, organized rugby teams, and the rest of the people sit in the stands. This is a new invention. This is called spectator sports. This doesn't mean the gladiators in Roman times. That was a separate bread and puppet theater. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about adults who now work 6 days a week and can't play with the kids. The father coming home, playing with the kid. The father and son is a reenactment of that sociological history of playing with kids together with adults. That's a reenactment after work. This is the first time that the adults, men and women, by the way, have to go to work in the factory and only have the one day. So the kids are left to fend for themselves.
Well, that makes sense. And I guess looking at the organized sports arc, and they kind of came about mostly in the late 1800s, mid to late, somewhere in there, right?
Right.
And early on, though, people weren't really making much of a living on it. I mean, it was very, very low wage, low respect. I think the professionalism has grown into it over time.
Oh, yeah. I mean, take a look at baseball. It starts in the 1880s in the Civil War, and then 1880s, 1900s. That's because of the fact that the people are in the factories. When I went down to the Dominican Republic a bunch of times. I was working on a script about it's called Sugar Bowl, and each town down there had a sugar factory. This is just 10, 15 years ago. Each town had a sugar factory, and each town had a baseball team. And the baseball team was named after the town, and they played on Sundays. And it's almost like they're 100 years behind in the Dominican Republic. And the town I went to was San Pedro de Macorís, which is called City of Shortstops. And they've created more major league shortstops than any other city in the world. But every other town has a baseball team, and every major leaguer who's from that town, by custom, when he's off from the major league season, goes back and actually plays with that team.
That makes sense. That makes sense. And I was also going to say, with the sports in terms of, or games having relevance to real life, perfect analogy would be the Olympics.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
And I think those were really the only real sports prior to that point, other than the kids' games, right?
Right. But don't confuse sports with games.
Okay.
There's, it's two different things. Like yo-yo is not a spear, a javelin throwing thing, but each one does have its reason. That's why I was getting to the point about marbles.
Well, you brought up baseball, so is that a sport or a game? And that's competitive.
That's been debated for centuries, my friend. That is
golf.
America's pastime. That's been debated, right? What is it? But let's take marbles, for instance.
All right.
So you take your thumb and your forefinger, right, and you hit the marble, right?
Yeah.
Into like this kid is doing here. That is designed to strengthen the bow and arrow fingers of your hand. That's the purpose of marbles. Now, this was done all the way back in Egyptian times. Marbles later got rounded up and improved as glass, but they started out as little pebbles. But the intention, the sociological intention, is to strengthen these two fingers for bow and arrow hunting. It's a very clear expression of what I'm talking about, marbles.
All right.
You'll see it in other games too, but marbles, it's very clearly delineated what that's for.
All right, and people are writing in the chat, but yes, in fact, double dutch and jump roping is, in fact, one of the sports you're referencing.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And that, again, crosses all lines, goes through all cultures, all different countries.
Yeah, this is actually on a naval vessel.
I mean, they have championships right now. I mean, that's, I think, from 2018 or something.
Oh, it's crazy hard sport. I mean, okay, not sport. Well, I don't know what that is. I mean, I don't know if I call that a game or an exercise.
These are America's games. I mean, this is, America's street games. I mean, there's one called Scully that everyone still plays, and even in New York and Philadelphia, Ohio, and it's a chalkboard on a sidewalk in the middle of the street, where you would take a bottle cap and fill it up with crayon wax. You'd melt crayon wax into it, and that would be your piece. And you go from boxes from 1 to 9, trying to knock out your opponent, and go around this square Scully table on the street made with chalk. And that game crosses all different ethnic boundaries. I remember going back to New York a number of years ago and going uptown and seeing Haitian kids who just arrived playing it. So it's multi-generational. It didn't matter where you came from.
Well, there's a lot of games that are based on that too. The knocking of something out, like croquet, or different ones. Chipping people out of the way, even billiards.
Right. There's games that have devices, and there's games that don't. Like Red Rover send Eric right over. You form 2 lines, right? And this goes all the way back to Victorian England, where it was a way to flirt with the other men in the town. And a guy would run across and try to break the chain of people holding hands. And if he doesn't break the chain, he becomes, he has to get sent back. And if he breaks the chain gets longer. And that's called Red Rover. And that's been played all over the world too. The American game version of it is essentially the same as the British. And I think this is a photo of Red Rover. Yeah.
Yeah,
the
she's
girl is
breaking
trying
the
to
line.
break through the line.
Yeah, looks like she is breaking it, actually.
Looks like she is breaking through the line.
Yeah, I think she's definitely free. Okay, so let me see. One of the games we are going to be talking about, and we have little videos on them.
Oh.
We have red light, green light.
Okay.
So let's go and pop that up.
Yeah, that's a really simple game to be played by 5 and 8-year-olds. I mean, that's here's a little explanation of it, I think.
Red light, green light, 1, 2, 3. Red light, green light, 1, 2, 3. Red light, green light, 1, 2, 3. Hi, Ryan.
Okay, so
and like every other game, it does end with an argument.
Right. So
what are the rules?
The leader turns his back and says, red light, green light, 1, 2, 3, and they can advance. And once he turns back, they have to freeze. A lot of games involve freezing and not moving. There's a game called freeze tag, which is another one where you turn around and everyone has to freeze. And if you're caught in a moving position, you're sent all the way back to start over. We had a derivation of that called mumfreeze, where you would be in a circle and the guy in the middle would say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 mumfreeze. And everyone had a freeze, and he would extricate himself from the circle, walk around the circle until somebody invariably moved, and they would yell, "Get him!" And everybody would pound the piss out of that person until that person, as quickly as possible, would shout 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 mumfreeze. And now everyone is in a very awkward position, having pounded the piss out of the one kid. So he has to extricate himself, and it continues on like that until everyone is beaten senseless.
See, I just grew up with just tag.
Well, there are variations on tag.
And by the way, don't be a kid who has asthma or allergies when you have to play tag, because life really sucks.
So there's a game called Ringalivio that I mentioned earlier. Ringalivio is a very complicated game. It's played in all different places. Actually, even I don't know if that's Ringalivio, but it's something.
They labeled it as such.
It's what?
That's what they said.
Oh, maybe it is. Okay. So Ringalivio could be 20 kids on 20 kids, and you had to hide. The 20 kids had to hide. You could hide anywhere. And the other 20 had to capture the other side and put them into a jail. And the jail was guarded by a jailer. So once you captured all 20 of your opponents, you were victorious. This could go on for days, Eric. This is interrupted by dinner. It's interrupted by whatever's going on.
Good Lord.
Now, it's a complicated game because to capture someone, you had to physically hold them and go ring alivio 1 2 3, ring alivio 1 2 3, ring alivio 1 2 3. Now they're not going to be passive; they're trying to extricate themselves. If they're captured, they're put into the jail, and somebody could rush to the jail and tap the jail and go ollie 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 oxen free and free everyone, and the game starts all the way over again.
Oh my God. So it could go forever.
Oh no, it can literally go forever. Now, the reason I mention it is because even the Lewis and Clark Corps of Discovery played this game with Nez Perce. That's how far back this game. They played it with Native Americans in a fun, competition and taught them how to play it. So, I mean, this thing goes all the way back, and there's a part of it called electricity where everyone in the jail holds hands, making a long line. So somebody could run and literally touch the hand of the kid who's on the end of that line, again, freeing everyone in the prison and thereby giving you a full. All of this is done to help get an understanding of military life. And that's why I'm mentioning it to you, is because it's really, especially Ring Alivio, is designed from operating the military side of your brain, freeing prisoners, having to extricate yourself physically from being captured by the enemy, hiding. We would hide in sewers. We would hide underneath cars. You would hide on a rooftop and have lunch. And, I mean, just anywhere where it has a military spy connotation to it, is what I'm saying.
Didn't it have a tie to herding as well, like capturing sheep or animals, that holding them?
No, that's more like hide and seek. Hide and seek would be more like that, trying to find an individual miniature game like hide and seek, which is a shorter version.
Seizing them, because part of it is seizing and holding for
like
long
seizing
enough.
The stray sheep. Absolutely. Absolutely. That's where it comes from. But I mean, take a look at jacks, for instance, the game where you toss the jacks. That was played with in ancient Greece with sheep bones and pebbles, going back to ancient Greece, Eric. That's how far back these games go.
Well, that's relatively recent. Not
right. Okay, so in my world, I mean, the games that we played all had, for the most part, a ball, and the ball was either a Spalding or a Pensy Pinky, and there are only two balls allowed in society, and the Spalding was clearly the dominant ball of its era, made by Spalding, and it was called a Spalding, but it was made by Spalding, who may or may not have invented baseball. There was a debate about Spalding versus Abner Doubleday, but the two balls had to be used for every single game. And those games included box ball, 7 boxes, hit the penny, slap ball, punch ball, stick ball, stoop ball. I mean, all of these games had a ball. And depending on what the game was, if you lost these games, there were two choices, whoever the losing team was. You either had asses up. Oh, there's a Spalding right there. Yeah. But you see, they even made it Spalding, and that's like a slang. That's just a slang. It's actually Spalding is the name of the company, but it became so popular that they called it Spalding.
Okay. How big is it? You don't really see from this picture. Is it like double the size of a racquetball, or?
It's the size of a tennis ball.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. It's like a tennis ball without the fur.
Okay.
So you would use it for everything. And we had to use it for a game called Chinese handball. Now, Chinese handball was an interesting game because you needed a long wall, and you needed boxes alongside on the sidewalk. And each person was in a box.
Mm-hmm.
And the first person was the king, and then the queen, then the jack, then 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And you served the ball down onto the ground. It hit the wall and went into the next box for the next person. That person had to hit it down the line. And you stood there literally 4 feet from the wall, and you hit the ball down the line. Whoever screwed up had to go to the end of the line. And once you defeated the king had to go and start at the end of the line. So it could be 15 kids playing, and you had to go all the way at the end of the line if you screwed up the hitting the ball down along the wall to the next guy. So the king would serve, the queen would hit it, the jack would hit it, the 10 would hit it, but everything Chinese was down. That was because everybody
if you keep digging, you go to China.
Yeah, that's where it came from. Yeah, if you kept digging, you'd eventually hit China. So everything in the culture down was considered Chinese. It makes no sense, but to kids it did. I don't know what they call it in China. Maybe they call it American handball there. But
I wonder if it went away, because when I was growing up, it was the same thing. You're gonna fall so far, you'll wind up in China.
right,
That
yeah,
that hole's so deep, it's going all the way to China. It just there
right.
definitely
It has
was
nothing to do with Chinese checkers or anything like that.
Mm-mm.
No, it was about going down. Anyway, the difference between regular handball and Chinese handball was regular handball, you hit the ball up. Chinese handball, you hit the ball down. And it was a real art form. There were guys who could make these skyscrapers or these wall scrapers where the ball literally would rise like 20 feet in the air, like 6 inches parallel to the wall. And you would scrape your knuckles trying to hit it down to the next guy.
Ouch.
And blood was drawn on many occasions.
Well, everybody was tougher back then. Now they would be like,
I don't know.
we need to have a softer area. We can't be playing around all these loose blocks and concrete.
Yeah, the Chinese handball. Anyway, so any game you lost, you had to either have asses up or through the mill. Now, asses up was you stood against that wall, bent over, and we'll get into Johnny on the Pony, which is similar. But each individual team member who lost would put his hands against the wall, put his head against the wall, bend over, and you would take this Spalding from 60 feet away and throw it as hard as you could and hit the opponent in the behind. That was called asses up. Or you crawled on all fours. Thank you, Thomas. You crawled on all fours through the opposing team who paddled your ass with their hands.
This
like,
sounds
like a paddle, like through the mill. That was called through the mill.
Okay, this sounds like a frat boy initiation, or even a military where I don't know if you've heard of. I think the Navy has it, or airborne. Like when somebody does their first jump and they get their airborne wings, it's a pin, and they call them blood wings. So what they do is they put the pin on, and they don't have the back on there, and then everybody goes and slaps their chest when they go on.
Could have something to do with it. These were the two penalties: asses up and through the mill. But what I was getting to with asses up is it leads to Johnny on the Pony, also known as Buck in some areas of the nation. Johnny on the Pony was a game with a pillow. A man or boy, a girl, it could be anything, is a pillow. So the pillow is the guy on the right. This kid on the extreme right is a pillow. And he cradles the head of the first kid who bends over. And that line, which maybe we'll see that video how it works. This is a very short version of it. There should be about 10 kids here, or 6. I mean, having 2 is kind of absurd. But the first kid is the pillow. The other 2 become the pony. And then Johnny runs and jumps. And the idea is to break the back of this opposing team by jumping on and causing so much weight that they collapse.
All right, let's go ahead and look at
Let's see if we can show how this works in real time. I think this is a Latin Catholic.
We really don't need sound. You get the point of it.
Ah, there you go. Yeah, and now you've got to move up too because more guys are coming. Watch this. Here's another guy, and they're going to keep coming. Yeah, and eventually they're going to snap. Or hopefully, if not, let's see the last kid. Okay, you saved the biggest kid for last. That was very smart. That's a tradition. But the first kid is the pillow who holds the kid's head. It's a complicated game, but it's called Johnny on the Pony.
And now, what was the purpose of that one?
Just to break the other team's back. I mean, let's go, Brandon. I mean,
by the way, you saw that tweet earlier, right?
Yes, yeah, I did.
Okay, I'm sorry. That has to go down as a high-level troll.
Yeah,
you actually
White House troll.
Get Joe Biden to say, "Let's go, Brendan." I agree.
So, anyway, a lot of these games would all end with the same result: either Johnny on the Pony, red light, asses up, or through the mill. Something had to give, and these were the 2 or 3 ways that were done traditionally. Now, like I was saying before, there's boxes on the sidewalk, and those boxes are necessary for all these different box ball games. There were 7 boxes: box ball, slap ball, hit the penny, all of these are involved with the boxes. Now, box baseball, which is a very intricate game, had 3 boxes, and you would pitch the ball, and the guy would try to slap it into your box, and you would catch it, and that would be an out. But it was hard to straddle the box and cover the other side of the box is really the key to these games. There was a game called 7 Boxes where you would bounce the ball in each box, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And you would start with 1 and then 2, then 3, then 4, then 5, then 6 and 7. I mean, these were intricate games that, like, when we were playing them, I might have been 9 years old, but there were guys who were 22 who just got back from Vietnam who were still playing them. So when we were playing these games in New York, there was no age limit. You didn't play among your age group. The first time I ever saw a limitation on age was when I joined Little League. And Little League gave you a regimented age of what sport you could play on. And nobody was happy about it. I'll tell you that right now, Eric, because there were kids on your Little League team that sucked. And you didn't want them on your Little League team. You'd rather have a 22-year-old guy from Vietnam.
Well, obviously.
Right. Okay. So when you chose up sides, there was a reason that side choosing was so important, because you would choose, and then you'd get first pick, and you choose the best guy. The best guy might be 16 years old. You might be 9. You know what I mean? But if you were 9 and picked, that was such an honor to be picked at the age of 9 to be on a team with some of these older teens, and that made it more competitive. That made it more fun. That eliminated the age restriction. The first age restriction I ever saw was in Little League, where everybody had to be the same age to be on the team, and that really sucked.
Yeah, well, at least they still scored it at the time.
Right.
I mean, it's not getting any better as we go, Mark. I'm sure there are those.
The point of doing these games is to get the kids out of the house. And we were out of the house the second you came home from school to the time that your mother, yelled that dinner was ready.
Supper. Yeah.
Right. There was no way you were going to stay in that house. Today, it's the opposite. The parents obviously don't want the kid to ever leave the house.
Oh, well, back then, the parents didn't want you in the house.
Right. Oh, dude, there was no way. There was no way.
Something.
Yeah, you got kicked out of the house. Yeah. There was no way. Anyway, so Chinese handball, stoop ball, box baseball, these were all part of the culture of these games that were passed down. And look, I didn't know where they came from. They came from the older kids. That's how I was taught. The slap ball game had a pitcher and a first baseman and a third baseman that was played in a schoolyard. Punch ball was played in a schoolyard. Even when I was in school, as part of gym, you played punch ball. You know what I mean? So that was the same age too.
And dodgeball back
What's
then.
that?
Dodgeball back then.
Yeah, dodgeball, not as much for us. But I mean, when we went outside, it was more like punch ball and slap ball and things of that nature. But inside, that was a gym environment. Anything could happen in there. Rope climbing and really annoying things.
Yeah, I saw a great cartoon showing a gym coach that died, and all he had to do was climb the rope to get to the pearly gate.
That's what your coach said?
No, it was a cartoon. I thought it was pretty funny.
Right.
With the gym coach who died, and St. Peter sitting above, and all he had to do was climb the rope to get to St. Peter to go into heaven.
Well, interestingly enough, with getting back to Relivio, one of the origins I heard was the English taunting the Vikings after they plundered so many times to send Red over. Red Rover, send Red over. And that was them taunting the Vikings. I don't know how good it ended up for the Britain people, but
those usually weren't the ones you wanted to taunt.
I know. But how you chose up sides was interesting because there are different variations. We used to do engine number 9 going down Chicago line. If the train falls off the track, do you want your money back? IOU. And you would do this with their sneakers stuck in a circle. The kids would put their feet in, and somebody would go around engine number, hitting each sneaker to see who would be on the team. And another one was ring around the rosy, pocket full of posy, ashes, all fall down. And that apparently goes back to the plague of 1619, where Ring Around the Rosie was the rosacea-like plague, cholera, I believe, that affected the face. And then Posey was flowers they carried to cover up the smell, and ashes, of course, was the death at the end. So little schoolgirls doing this was quite macabre, but that's what their style was in England in the 1600s, 1700s. And that came over, to the United States also, Ring Around the Rosie.
Well, I mean, original Mother Goose fairy tales are some of the most frightening things you can ever imagine. So, things were pretty dark and they were tough back then. I mean, when you're saying macabre, it's kind of like, well, no, that was life. I mean, it's like if you ever go to a graveyard and you just see they're riddled, an old graveyard, they're riddled with little tiny freaking headstones of all the babies and children who died.
Yeah.
I mean, it was literally, I forget the numbers, but I want to say it was maybe 2 out of 5 or,
Well, that's why you had so
died.
many children, because you were going to lose half of them, and infant mortality rates were enormous. I think the United States is now completely plummeted in infant mortality. We're really getting ranked towards the middle of industrialized countries now.
Yeah, well, and we're also not really reproducing. So our population is, or traditional inhabitants are shrinking, I guess I would say. Immigration is swelling our numbers in a different manner.
Right. That's true. So, I mean, when we started to try to promote this TV show, the idea was to get the kids out of the house.
Brothers Grimm.
Yeah, that's another good one. Yeah. We wanted to get the kids out of the house, and this was in the late 90s, before childhood obesity really took off. Now it's just through the roof. Mm-hmm. Now it's just crazy. These kids just, stay and play Xbox or whatever,
Well, okay, you followed Jordan Peterson a little bit, right? He brought up a theory one time I thought that was fascinating, that goes into what I feel are some of the problems. Like you and I are talking about, remember when we used to be kicked out of the house and not allowed to go home until dinner? It was like, but don't be late. So it was a mixed message there. It's like, your ass better not be here until dinner, but you better not be late for dinner.
Right.
So you had that, but he's saying that some of these kids who are out there, they're really, the TikTok kids. I'll just say TikTok kids.
Right.
With the goofiness and all that, he feels they were stunted because of helicopter parenting, in the sense that, like, when you and I were a kid, we would pretend we were superhero or Captain Kirk or whatever. So in between the games, we'd be, pretend to be a character, tackling, imaginary friends, all of that stuff. But now kids aren't really allowed to leave their house to have an imagination. Everything is fed to them through video games or television or, really high level animation stuff, to where it's like, they're not able to create as much, I feel, and they're not independent, and I just say bored.
Right.
Boredom might have been one of the greatest assets that you and I had.
Right.
Up.
Can we show that thumbnail again? Is that possible?
Which thumbnail?
For this show?
I'd have to grab it and find it. But
can you grab it and find it? I just want, because it would answer your question a little bit.
Okay. Well, keep riffing while I look.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway.
So, let me
instantaneously, because for the thumbnail from the beginning of the show, I will extrapolate on what he's talking about.
This show's yellow, dude. I cannot freaking believe it. We're talking about games, and this show is already demonetized
because we want them to leave the house. I don't know. Maybe they want them.
I do not know why.
We have to survive on super chats, Eric. There's no way
super chats and locals.
We can only survive on super duper chats.
I have no idea, but I mean, I'm not kidding, folks. I literally just looked to go get the thumbnail, and
they took one look at that thumbnail and they said, "No way, Jose. These two getting payday."
These guys are freaking trouble.
Anyway, so yeah, I mean, what Jordan was referring to, I think, is I've heard him extrapolate on this, that parents or mothers will have children later in life, maybe only have one child. The career comes first. Oh, okay. So here, this is an interesting, as I was going to explain this to the audience. This is the thumbnail for this show, America's Street Games. And the kid with the striped shirt with his hands doing that, riding his bicycle with no hands, by the way, is me. And the girl on the right is Emily Saltz, who lived next door, who played doctor with me under her bed, getting me kicked out of her apartment by her mother. I did nothing. I was the victim, and she wanted to be a woman doctor and did stuff to me underneath her bed in that building on the right. So, okay. So this kid on the left goes to school, and every day in school, he wore a Superman costume underneath his shirt and tie in school, especially on Fridays when we had to wear a white shirt and a red tie. And I wore this Superman costume underneath my clothes. I didn't wear the cape. But one day the teacher, Mrs. Bromberg, saw the red S through my white shirt, and she thought that meant trouble. So in almost a futuristic response, she called my mother to come to school because I was wearing my Superman costume underneath my school clothes. And this was a fantasy. Obviously, I collected Superman comics and I wore the Superman costume, and
Sure.
who didn't? So anyway, I'm in school and my mother comes up, and I'm sitting there and I think, well, I'm going to be in trouble here. So the teacher starts telling my mother that I'm wearing the Superman costume. They get into a fight, and my mother whacks the teacher in the face in the front of the classroom. And I said to my schoolmate, Jeffrey Stern, I said, that's why I wear the Superman costume.
Oh, nice. By the way, most important question here.
I don't know. I don't know what happened to her, but all I'm saying is that we were outside. This picture just demonstrates what we were doing outside. That's outside of our building where we lived in Brooklyn. And there was just tons and tons of activity of kids of all ages going on. They had a bike room in the building that had literally 150 bicycles in it. And we would take the parts apart and make bicycles out of different bicycles, altering different bikes and stuff like that. But there was so much physical activity compared to today. If you ever saw a photo from 1965, I was looking at these photos of RFK's funeral in 1968, the funeral train, and how everyone looks emaciated, Eric, compared to today.
Yeah.
They show thousands and thousands of Americans as the funeral train goes across, and you see all these Americans, and they're so thin compared to, the post-food stamp fast food age. The two things combined is almost rocket fuel of America's obesity problem.
Well, if you look too, like some of the quote fat characters on,
Fat Albert,
Costello,
yeah.
A lot of them would be just considered a little overweight now.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, and they were fat. That was like the genuine. And what you're saying is absolutely true. It goes all the way into the 70s.
Yep.
If you look at any concerts, everybody is just really thin.
Right. Well, look at Woodstock 1, and then with the later concerts, you'll see exactly.
Perfect.
Right.
Perfect. Yeah. Okay.
You'll see a difference in body shape.
Marilyn Monroe.
Right. Marilyn Monroe was not skinny. Zoftig is what I would say.
Very true. But
yeah.
And yeah, I guess now she would be seen as, well, no. Well, now we have bigger girls than her. I mean, much bigger, because that's
Jane Mansfield was much bigger than her too. I think in size. There were bigger women. I mean, but the point of the matter was, if you looked at the kids without their shirts in the summer of June of 1968.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's just insane. I think you'd be looking at Biafra.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and they were pictures of health, essentially.
Well, the two things that happened since 68 was the advent of both fast food and food stamps, throughout the land. Those two, I don't know which one is worse than the other, but it's a double barrel activity of food being given away, and bad food for that matter.
True. I think I need to go get some McDonald's now. All right. So what is next, Mark?
Oh, well, I think we're going to do the Alec Baldwin thing, right? Or
yeah, we're going to follow up with some Baldwin. Next week for our normal show, we are looking at I don't know if you had anything on it. I'm not revealing anything by saying David Steves. I don't think.
Oh, right. Well, that may have to wait. We'll see if we could pull that off. There's a lot of video, not a lot of video, but there's some video of
Okay.
that storyline. A guy who lost his plane, and
We're
so
still waiting on Sirhan.
we're
And
waiting on a decision on Sirhan. Yeah.
we may be I may be uploading fairly soon some of our traditional videos that a lot of people have really liked, so people can catch up and everything can exist on the one channel happily again, and
Right.
everybody can get ready to
Well, we do want to do part 2 of
see
Elliot
that.
Smith and go over the coroner's report
That's going to be in January when we
January with
can.
Allison,
Yeah.
and that'll be fun, right? We've got David
Oh,
Steves
definitely.
coming up. I want to do this thing on Sonora House, which we touched about briefly, but I
Mhm.
think that would be a good story maybe for next week. The art center in Woodstock that I told you about,
That one, yep.
that's a possible storyline.
And of course, when you get back home, Lord Buckley's still in the queue.
Lord Buckley and
Lenny
Lenny,
Bruce.
some of ththese other bigger icons. I'm gonna have to brush up on some of those in my.
Oh yes. Okay. Good point. Sock versus Saban. Gavin's on.
Yeah, we need Dr. Drew for that. So I wanted to wait till I got home and talk to Drew, because he wants to be involved also. Maybe on the local side.
You need your Baldwin fix, man.
You're gonna have to hold on.
You got to hold out. Just hang in there.
You're
Hang in
gonna
there.
have to take some methadone until
get us some more subs so we can. No, I'm just.
If you give us some more subs, you can have Suboxone, which will block the Baldwin addiction for 48 hours.
Exactly, or so.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll definitely do more, and I think the next Baldwin, we may be doing a bit more of a Q&A if people have questions about Baldwin. Maybe looking at the mind map a little bit too.
Oh, the mind map looks fascinating. The in its infancy, at least.
Yeah, it's very early days, but I think we will be using that again, like for Oswald and other things. I think it's a good way to organize and maybe add to it as shows come on. So for now, folks, I think everybody's got family they need to get back to.
Oh yeah, Merry Christmas to everyone.
Yes, and if you're in need for a last minute gift, you can always give the gift of a subscription.
Wait a minute, what are you saying? That they can subscribe?
Well, they can subscribe now for free, and they should be. They're here. Right. But they also can give the gift of a subscription to locals.
Right on.
They can have it themselves, or they can give it to somebody else who might enjoy.
Is that possible, Eric?
Yeah, absolutely. It's possible.
Really?
It's absolutely possible. They are more than welcome to join. The more people we get on locals, the better it can be. Right now, we're at just over 400 people who are subscribed.
Right on.
Inside baseball, but I'm trying to get us to over 500 people, because then we can start uploading more content to locals, because it'll give us space, and we can do potentially 90-minute live streams there. So that's part of why I'm trying to push as hard as I can to get it bigger. Then we can maybe provide even more rather than the hard limits.
It's so funny because you can give a digital Amazon book gift to someone. I for Christmas, I gave someone the Dr. Mark McDonald book, which I strongly recommend. The digital version, I think, is $7.99. I sent it. Very convenient Christmas gift, because you just put the guy's email address in, or the recipient, and it goes to them or their computer or wherever they look at Amazon, whether it's a phone or a computer or their Kindle. And the guy was overjoyed to get it. It happens instantaneously. And you can do that with my book.
Absolutely.
Rehab Nation Inside the Secret World of Celebrity Rehab.
And I don't even think it's $7.99.
No, I think it's like $3 or something. But the same electronics, same digital electronics holds up. You can send it to someone as a gift, and not tell them how much it is. But it's priced to move. Let me just put it that way. And it's a good gift. It's a good gift, as is the subscription, as is PayPal, Eric, right?
Yes, and we have gotten some PayPals. By the way,
Thank
just
you,
to let everybody know, I just found out yesterday, and I think Mark too, that we can respond on PayPal. So we're reaching back.
I didn't know.
We did not know that.
Writing, if you PayPal me, you will get, and now with going forward, an intimate reply. I'll just tell you that right now. You will get a reply.
You will hear back. Yes. So
You will hear
I
back.
have
I
to
didn't know
I have
you
to go
could
back and
respond. Now I do.
yeah, I have to go back and look because I did not know that.
I went back and responded to every single person, just to be on the safe side who PayPal'd me. So I really appreciate it. Merry Christmas for all those people who did do the PayPal.
Yes, and very much so. And really, folks, thank you, all of you, and just have the best possible holiday. Take
Right.
care of yourself. Take care of your family. To go Viva, and
They can
be
watch us
safe.
in that Viva Christmas special, right, Eric?
Oh yeah, last Wednesday was a hectic episode,
It's pretty
but a lot of
long, but
fun. Yeah,
some guys didn't make it till the end. There are people who disappeared, never came back.
yeah. Nate fell out.
Nate the
Nate was
lawyer.
hanging, and he just got his
You know what it is? It was a
connection was terrible.
marathon, not a sprint, Eric. It was a marathon. It was like the Greek marathon.
Well,
We
it
were able to,
actually that is pretty close to my marathon PR time.
right, 3 hours and 48 minutes.
Oh, was it that long? Okay, no, my marathon PR I think was 3 hours 27 minutes for
Well, it was roughly in
26.2.
there, but some people didn't have the
Yeah.
will to live and gave up. People just disappeared. They didn't even say goodbye.
Well, hey, it was a casual affair.
Yeah.
But yeah,
a lot
it's
of fun. A lot of fun.
over on Viva Fry, folks. Yeah, check it out. It was definitely a lot of fun, and we will see you soon.
Okay.